Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to In Time. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, and with me is, as always, Ansgar Odinson.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
So we have breaking news, as I think we predicted and everyone predicted would be getting a lot of recently. The Iraqi parliament has voted to expel all foreign forces, but in particular, this isn't targeted to any other country. It's really they are expelling all U.S. forces from the country. This is just the parliament that has voted, but it will not be binding until the president signs it. But not only is the president expected to sign it, the president actually has a timetable for the withdrawal of all U.S. withdrawal. So we are essentially, it looks like, going to be expelled from Iraq.
Yeah, and they're framing this as a reclaiming their sovereignty is the way that this is being framed, and this comes on the eve of massive um um there were throngs and throngs of people in Iraq, not just Iran, in Iraq that came out for general, I forget his name right now, but
Yeah.
supreme general something or other, but anyways, for his funeral. Apparently he was beloved not just in Iran but in Iraq, and so um based on the large amounts of public, outcry against the killing of this man, I am sure that their lawmakers have had to almost been forced to move to respond to this.
Well, it's something that I think we had discussed when we had the. Hey, I think unfortunately it may end up that we are going to have a lot of breaking news segments over the next week or so. A lot has the targeted killing of this general has been rather profound. One of the things we brought up when it first happened was that Iraq was going to be forced to take a position. There's technically three things they could do. They could ignore it, they could come out for, or they could come out against. If they ignore it, that's going to be the same thing as coming out for. So they're really stuck with either coming out for or coming out against. If they come out for, they will probably be in a war with Iran. Hold 1 second, please. So we are talking the possibility, if they came out
Mhm.
for, they would be at a war with Iran, which frankly, they've been at war with Iran in one way or another for almost 3,000 years. They aren't
Yeah.
necessarily opposed to a hot war, but I think right now isn't a good time for them. I don't think they want to do it. And frankly, I don't think
Well,
Iran wants to do it. I
and the
think Iran
last
would rather be dealing with us. Yes.
Yeah, and when you're a leader, the last thing you want to do is engage with a. Okay, you're looking at the possibility of a war with a nation, and the vast majority of your citizens are upset that their their public figure has been assassinated. You're not going to have a lot of people who are supporting that war at the time. We put them in an extraordinarily difficult position.
We did, and it's one of those things. If they don't come out against, it will be seen as there's a Latin phrase, "Citacit." Oh Jesus, I can't remember. But silence implies consent. If they say nothing,
Mhm.
that implies that they're for it. So they had to do something. Condemnation was one possible thing. It looks like what they've decided instead is to expel us completely. Now, this has some significant implications, which I think we're going to get into. We wanted to have on Dr. Misha Griffith, which, frankly, the amount that we've been either inviting her on or asking her to come on, we should do. We're going to have to rename this like the In Time show with Nick, Ansgar,
And
and Misha, because
sometimes
quite
Misha, and
frankly,
often Misha.
let's just give her a permanent seat. I
Oh,
mean,
there
at
you
this
go.
point, it's sort
Yeah.
of like a restaurant. She's just going to have a seat, and whenever she. But
Oh,
I've
okay,
spoken
yeah.
with her, and she had some interesting things to say. And I think there's also a lot of news since our last breaking news that's worth catching up on. Before we do that, I did want to say we've had this discussion before. We have an interesting calendar coming up, and I'd like to Ansgar have you discuss it in a couple of minutes. But among things we're going to have our Patreon meeting coming up, and we because listen, I have no integrity or ethics, and I don't think really our producer does either. He's Canadian, so by de facto, people assume he does, but I'm not convinced. But Ansgar unfortunately does, and Ansgar has been very much on the, we're not going to shill for other companies, and we haven't taken. And Dollar Shave Club has just been, oh God,
They've
they've
been
been
banging
knocking on
down
our
our door,
door.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, especially, yeah, exactly. So, um, and we are completely Patreon supported, and so if you like this show, I hope you will consider doing it. We actually are now approved to take memberships on YouTube. We'll shill all that stuff at some point later. I don't think that breaking news is the time to do it. But if you want to have an impact on the show and know when things are happening ahead of time, and if you appreciate what we do, which isn't easy to go live in the middle of a
No.
Sunday morning, but we appreciate that support. So
Let's just say
yeah,
the wife aggro gets a little hot.
it can, yeah.
Yeah.
So oh my God, what has happened really since so for those of you who have been under a rock, we under a rock. Okay, that was not I didn't mean to do that, but anyway, yeah, okay, I deserve that. Admittedly, that was an accident. That's why we're called in time, not on time. Oh my God, the catchphrases are just getting too serious. And this is the
A
World War III
very
trending hashtag. Yeah.
timely joke. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my
Uh,
God. All right, so
from our
this is
nick
this
of
is
time.
oh Jesus Christ. Oh God. Okay. Your name does not lend itself to any of that, so I'm at
No.
a huge disadvantage. Um, so I'm going to come up with one, and then I'm just going to hit you with it. I'm going to make it sound like it was just completely off the cuff. Like I just invented that one. Really, I'm like going to be working for months. I was on the phone with Dr. Griffith earlier, and I'd like to talk about what she said because she had a lot to say. She's not able to join us today. She is one of our correspondents. We have actually multiple correspondents right now. We've been leaning quite heavily on our political correspondent, which is Ethan ProLib. We have him on; he's very good, and Misha Griffith, who does history. We have a couple others. Ozzy has agreed to be our philosophy correspondent, but it turns out there isn't a lot of breaking news when it comes to philosophy.
Not really. No.
No. So, but we have. I was able to speak with her for about a half hour. It was a good conversation, but at one point she was like, I'd like to try. She's going to try to help us get an expert on just sort of Iraq in general. And I said, okay, that's really great. But we've been looking to get experts, but we can't find any, and that's why I'm speaking with Misha. And oh yeah, that was. I'm glad she's
Yeah.
got a sense of humor. Should never be back on the show. Here's the deal.
She's just gonna make you
If we,
pay for it.
yeah, yeah, she will too.
Yeah.
She don't play. She seems all nice and sweet,
Mhm.
but she don't play. Um, so if we get expelled from Iraq, there's a couple of things that need to be. Yeah, my focus is drifting. I'm still waking up. Excuse me, I haven't had enough coffee. So if we get expelled from Iraq, all our bases, everything that we've invested stays there. That may or may not be a problem. I'd like to discuss that, but let's start with how we got where we are here today. We did a targeted killing in Iraq, which we are actually permitted to do ostensibly in Iraq. We're allowed to conduct military operations in Iraq, so we are allowed to drop bombs in Iraq if we choose. That's what we did. We actually hit 4 Hellfire missiles, targeted 2 vehicles. One of them was containing a Iranian general.
Qasim
The
Soleimani, who
so
is essentially he is the only person the only person more powerful than him in the Iranian government is their supreme leader.
all right, so he is the ostensibly in the top tier
Mhm.
of command and control in Iran. We can't hit him in Iran. That's an act of war. Hitting him outside of Iran may also be, but hitting him inside Iran is clearly a huge no-no. So what we did was, as soon as he landed in Iraq, we blew up his convoy, killing him. And it turns out not only was he very powerful politically, but he was also beloved by people in Iraq and in Iran. So the backlash has been considerable. Now, was this legal? That depends on a number of things. Really, as most it does, it depends on the justification. Running a red light is usually considered legal if you've got somebody. It's always illegal, but it's usually considered legal if you've got somebody bleeding in the back and you're trying to get them to a hospital. I mean, there's the circumstances matter.
Right.
Our argument was that he was an enemy combatant. The reason he was an enemy combatant was because he was planning attacks on U.S. interests. As of this moment, the general consensus is that the United States has failed to provide evidence supporting that claim, at least significant evidence that is considered supporting it in any meaningful way. That's a serious problem, because if we fail to do that, then this wasn't actually a legit killing. This was an assassination. And that is an act of war. Iran is saying that that's what it is. And what other countries say and how the UN and other countries come out on this depends largely on our justification, which as of this moment seems to be lacking any credible
And
evidence.
we're going to be under greater scrutiny after the Bush era. We just are. Where our standard of providing evidence for this on the world stage is going to be under a massive amount of scrutiny after the whole they have weapons of mass destruction debacle.
Yeah,
That's
we've had a few intelligence failures, purportedly.
yeah, exactly. So there's going to be a massive amount of scrutiny, and Iran has pretty much unilaterally vowed vengeance for this attack. Let's see, their UN ambassador has vowed vengeance. Their supreme leader, which is kind of like our president, but a strongman dictator, has vowed vengeance. Pretty much every branch of the government, it's all over their state TV. One of the problems that this puts their supreme leader in, I can get his name in just a second, is that
Ayatollah Khomeini?
yes, he is under an extraordinary amount of pressure. The way a strongman dictator maintains power is by having enough people that support him. Otherwise, a general, a commander can come in and seize that power. And I don't know if any of you have seen the videos of the funerals for Mr. Soleimani, but they are incredible. The public outcry, in particular Iran, but also in Iraq, over this killing has been extreme. Um, one, I have to wonder, at the very least, if he doesn't have to retaliate to appease the mob, so to speak.
He may, and he's promised retaliations,
Mhm.
and I think his people want to retaliate, and it seems like a lot of the Iraqi people want to retaliate too. So we once this happened, and let me try. Okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to regain my focus here. We let's see. So there was the. Sorry, I'm still waking up, and I haven't had my cup of coffee. So the after the attack, a number of the big questions is, one, was this legit? Was this a justifiable killing in a combat zone of an enemy combatant, or was this an assassination and or retaliation? Was this, of course, and people have asked this, we've discussed this before, I'm sure we'll discuss it again, was this just to detract from the impeachment, to boost his numbers, yada, yada, yada. Iraq was put in a hugely difficult spot. If they don't condemn it, they will be seen as condoning it. What they have decided to do is not only condemn it, but to express their condemnation by kicking the U.S. out completely.
All foreign troops, all foreign military.
All,
Yeah.
exactly. Now, obviously, we can't pick up the bases and go, and this includes the bases with the big, huge swimming pools and all this other good stuff. So all of that's going to stay. Now, this gets into a large number of issues that I think we should try to discuss in terms of how and why we were there and what our response should be and how we should deal with it. But the one of the biggest sort of long story shorts on this is that at this point, Iran and Iraq have almost never agreed on anything in their 3,000-year history. They now agree on something, and that's that they want us out. That's we've gotten them to agree. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the upside, I guess.
And we
That's
do
pretty
have U.S.
staggering.
interests in the region. I mean, Kuwait is pretty much right next door, and we have already sent over 3,000 troops, extra troops into Kuwait, as a preemptive response to this. So that ratchets things up a bit too.
And we have told all of our every base we have in that area is on heightened alert. We have told all civilians to get out of Middle Eastern countries because they could be targets, and all our bases and embassies are expecting attacks. In fact, I believe there was a suicide attack, if I recall, earlier this morning on one of the embassies. I don't know what it did for damage. Maybe we can look
Mhm.
into that. But there has been in Kenya, I believe, there has been a
Yeah.
suicide attack earlier today.
And
So
there's no credible evidence that they actually are responsible, but they are claiming responsibility.
well, and whether they're responsible or not, one thing that happens is when you get both Iraq and Iran hating us, that's uniting much of the Middle East against us.
Hmm.
The Royal House of Saud is an uneasy ally with us. Their civilians loathe us. So what you've got now is you've managed to unite the Middle East, but against us, which was not really, I think, what the goal was. So, oh, somebody is offering to DM me coffee. I would sincerely appreciate that. I will take the until Google figures out a way to teleport it. But so I think here's a couple of significant problems. We own 95% of all of the foreign military bases worldwide. So if there's a military base that belongs to another country that's on foreign soil, 95% of those are owned by us. As I recall, off the top of my head, it's about 195 military bases owned by the US. We do this so that we can go anywhere and do anything we want to. I personally think that our military is grossly overextended. This is actually what caused the fall of Rome was having too big a military that they could not sustain and had to keep using, or else it would, and that's sort of what we're doing.
Yeah,
We
you
have
have
to
to use it to
military that
justify having it, right?
yeah, well, and to pay for it and to keep it going. So our military budget is roughly equal to the military budget of every other nation in the world combined. I say that again. Our military budget in the U.S. is equal to roughly the military budget of every other country in the world combined. Of the top 28 of those countries, 24 of them are allies. That includes the UK, that includes Canada, that includes most of South American countries, most European countries. They all have militaries. They're all allies. We're not at any significant threat of a hot war with either Russia or China. Those are the two big, and our budget exceeds all of them combined. I think that's a serious problem, and we can't seem to feed all our children and educate all our people. But nonetheless, we try to keep military bases in the Middle East because it's always a hotbed. There's always something going wrong there. And if we have a military base there, it makes deployments much easier. We often ask Turkey if we can deploy from Turkey. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but that does put us very much in we have to take their wishes into account more than we would like to politically. And what that means is we're sort of beholden to them. We don't like that. One of the ideas behind, whether Bush admitted this or not, one of the goals of taking the two big goals of taking Iraq, one of them was, yes, it was access to the oil and it was access to more veto power on OPEC. Right now we have veto power on OPEC through the Royal House of Saud. The Royal House of Saud is very unstable. The people there are trying to overthrow it. The only reason they failed to overthrow it is because, well, some country that keeps meddling in shit is selling them lots of guns. I won't tell you which one that is, but it's us.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
Uh,
that they're gonna collapse. When they do, we wanted to have another country that's beholden to us. That would be Iraq. Now, Bush was always saying, "Hey, we want to give them their freedom." And yeah, we wanted to give them their freedom so long as their freedom looked like what we wanted it. Yeah, it's kind of like that's
what
yeah.
we wanted is somebody that would protect our interests, that had the enough of a similar mindset that it would appease the people in thinking that we have liberated them.
So Ansgar,
Yeah.
what's your opinion us getting booted out of Iraq,
Well, I
which I
think
mean, we didn't even attack Iraq, and we were legit to be able to. But we are now this. That's the kind of repercussions that our president appears to be completely incapable of foreseeing or understanding. But at any rate, please, I apologize. I cut you
well, I
off.
think that puts us in an extraordinarily likely scenario for a proxy war. And one of the reasons being is that U.S. interests will not abandon Iraq very easily. Iraq very much is the staging ground next to Kuwait. Kuwait is a massive oil interest for us. Not only that, but as you said, we have dozens of bases in the area. There's a reason that we spent, millions and millions and, oh, come on, trillions of dollars and lives and blood and equipment in Iraq securing it for ourselves. There's a goddamn reason we did it. And the people who were interested in doing it to begin with are not going to be interested in losing it. The other thing is that right now Trump is playing to the evangelical right. He was losing their support, and on the same day that he launched this attack, within I think it was within 24 hours, he delivered a speech promising to bring prayers back in school. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is, in my mind, it is undeniable that this is a gesture to the evangelical right.
Is
Now,
this a topic we're going to be able to discuss? I don't know. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
oh,
Finish that,
go
and
ahead.
then I'd like to quickly get into the calendar because I think we're going to be discussing that. But
Yeah,
let's.
yeah, we can. I can get into the calendar in just a sec.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Um, so that's undeniable. Trump is in now an interesting position. He's put himself into. Um, when
I'm going to cut you off. Actually, no, please finish. But we have more breaking news.
Oh,
But let me get my
Jesus.
head around this, and then yeah. So please
Okay.
finish, and then I'll.
Okay. So Trump is in an extraordinary interesting position. If he acknowledges the retreat, right? If he acknowledges the legitimacy of this vote and pulls troops out of the region, um he will seem like not the strong man, me wield, military dick kind of guy that he is trying to present himself as to the base that he's playing to. If he doesn't, he ignites a war, and at the very least a proxy war. So that makes me feel as though this is makes the proxy war scenario you talked about last time we covered this much more likely than it seemed then, because now both leaders are in a position where to play to their base they almost have to engage. um yeah.
I'm getting word, and I'm going to check on this. I'm still trying to do it. So while you were speaking, I got word. It looks like the Congress is drafting a resolution to force Trump out of any engagements with Iran, and it looks like possibly to force him to uh, abide by any ruling in Iraq. So I'm
Wow.
I'm 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 trying to keep up with that right now. I got a
Yeah,
couple of things going on, obviously, but I think if that's legit, but that flashed across
that's
while you were speaking.
huge.
That is huge. And here's one thing, which is the reality is they are their own sovereign country, and we fought to make them their own sovereign country. We lost 4,000 troops making them their own sovereign country. So while we may despise this decision and we may feel like they don't necessarily appreciate us, and I would like to get into that as well because that's an important issue. But nonetheless, if they say we have to leave and we don't, we are now an occupying force in a foreign country and quite illegally. And I don't think there's any. I think the UN is going to come down on us for that, and I think most of the other countries in the world, and certainly I mean, if you think that we have to worry about terrorism right now, this is not going to make us any safer.
No.
And we said we were there to give them their freedom. Is that only a contingent on them doing what we want? Is that what we call freedom? That they're in our pocket? That's a problem. So, and I think Congress appears to recognize that, and it looks like they're drafting a resolution to force him to stop engaging with Iran the way he is, and to, I don't know what kind of power they have, and I don't know what that looks
What
like, but
happens if he
maybe
what happens if he ignores it? What happens if he says
that. Oh,
fuck it?
Jesus, that's a good question. Technically, he is the commander in chief, and he can
Mhm.
order the military anywhere he wants to, anytime he wants to, do whatever he wants. I believe it was during the Clinton administration, ProLib would know better, that we said, no, we don't really like that. And we're going to put a separate sort of check and balance on that. The president can't declare war without congressional approval. That's easy enough to go around. You say, we're not having a war.
It's
We're
a
just
police
peacekeeping
action.
by sending loads
Yeah.
of, yeah. So they got around that by saying if the president deploys them, he has to justify it somehow, I think within 30 days, if I remember. I don't remember all the rules. These are actually all reasonably new rules. When, the Constitution really just says the president can do whatever he wants with the military. He's the commander in chief. These restrictions are reasonably new, and they're laws. They're not actually constitutional. But um, what if he does that, he would probably be violating the law. He'd be possibly in contempt of Congress, and hey, impeachable. What do you know? But that's a good question, because the law says he's commander in chief, and the military takes that very, very seriously. If he says go do this, even if it's in violation of the law, you start to have some issues.
Mhm.
Generals are actually beholden to the law even over
Right.
the commander in chief, but that gets iffy. So we will have to see. Yeah, and let's if anyone wants to discuss this in the Discord, I think we should be discussing this in the Discord, and I'm going to hop into the Discord in a little bit and check
Fair
on it, and if
enough.
anyone has any new breaking news or anything to update this on. But now one of the things is I did want Dr. Griffith here to discuss this, but I'm actually
Yeah.
kind of pissed about that.
Yeah. Let me go through
No,
the calendar real quick, and then I want to address something that I've seen in the live chat.
okay, okay. Well, I just well, let me just so we were going to have on Dr. Griffith, but unfortunately, and we may have to talk about severing ties with her, because she said spending time with her husband was important,
Ugh.
and
Who the fuck
clearly
spends time
cover.
with their
Who the
family?
fuck? I
Come
mean,
on.
Jesus, this is
God.
national breaking news. We're YouTubers, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's just, oh, my husband. Anyways, please and then you,
Res,
yeah.
by the way, Discord link is in the description. Always in the description. So head on over there and go ahead and leave your thoughts. Um, so this coming Tuesday, that would be at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. We have Dr. Misha and another guest. I forget his name right now. I apologize. And we will be discussing the
Uh,
Australian wildfires. Um, and later on that same day, we do have two shows that day. That would be at a normal 2 o'clock time. We have To the Stars with Red's Rhetoric, where we will be discussing the impact of the space program. Um,
Now, Reds has intimated he might turn his camera on for that. If he does,
mm,
my advice to all of our guests is to turn your monitors off. A
yes.
lot of people have had that problem where he releases his camera. I lost 4 monitors one time when he just like, well, Nick, if you really want to see what I look like, poof, I still don't know what he looks like, because just the monitors, boom, 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 gone.
Let's see. Then the very next day on Wednesday, we have the Sygart, and where we're going to be talking about the connection between Trump and the evangelical right or the Christian right, and whether or not Christians should be supporting him and what the justifications are or are not. And that'll be very interesting. Well, why don't you tell us about Sygart? What are his interesting qualifications here?
Sygart is a biologist. He is a very well-known and respected biologist. I've done a number of streams with him. I enjoy chatting with him a great deal. He's an extraordinarily intelligent man, and we actually had him on Ask a Philosopher more than once. He's really quite adept at philosophy and at that kind of. He is religious. I tend to be an anti-theist, so I think we did when we first met. We were tentative with each other, but I think we have a growing respect for each other. At least I know he respects me some. I have no respect for him whatsoever. But no, he's a very good guy. I like him very much, and I do look forward to having him on. He's an honest individual and a very intelligent, and as a Christian, very concerned about how Christians interact with Trump and keeping their ideology. So I think he'd be worthwhile. And again, he's a doctor of biology, so I think that's a worthwhile.
Apparently, I said twump and didn't notice, so the chat is laughing about that. And then Thursday, we are having our Patreon hangout. So go ahead and if you are a patron, um, be ready for a patron. Be ready for it. Patron hangout on the 9th. That is on Thursday. That will be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard. And if you are not a patron but would like to be one, go ahead and check out the description. We've got all those links. But something I wanted to ask you about before we get into, first of all, we had somebody in the chat try to say that the mourners for this were paid. And I don't know if you saw the video of the millions of people, like it looked like as if the Pope had been assassinated. So apparently Iran paid all those millions of people to come out to mourn. And yeah, so
Listen, those kinds of things. So what? That sounds like a sort of a false flag accusation. Not
mhm,
obviously not our flag, but a false flag claim. And I'm very hesitant to false flag claims. That kind of stuff does happen, but it's rare. And it's one of those things. It's the easiest thing in the world to claim, and one of the hardest to refute. So unless there is any evidence, and I've heard absolutely no evidence. And before this guy was killed, and we said this, it was well understood he was beloved by the
mhm,
people. The number of times you can see him, shaking hands with, and it seems like even like Sunni Shia, even across religious boundaries, they liked him. I'm not entirely sure
right.
why. I'm sure there is a very good reason. I'm sure he either was good at
Could be
bringing people
charisma
together, or he was
or
good
yeah.
at, but he clearly was very successful at, he was beloved. Um, and yeah, so unless you could bring any kind of evidence to suggest that, yeah, that's not, no,
The next thing I
I
want
don't,
to
I don't.
address is people keep I've seen this on Twitter. There's this idea that if you are against provoking a war that you must be supportive and love Iran. And I just want to point something out. If I saw Nick Soutter over here poking a hornet's nest, me saying, dude, that's a dumb idea to poke that hornet's nest doesn't mean that I want to hug hornets. It does not mean that I love the hornets. It just means that I recognize that it's a bad idea. Um,
Well, and to take it a step further, and an example, and I'd like you to give the example because I love this example, but there's another example um, that has to do with, um, because Iran. This is going to sound strange, I know, but did you realize? And there was a study done to confirm this. Iranians are human beings.
oh my
It's
God.
shocking.
No.
Yeah. I listen. I double checked the figures on that. It's true, and I will stand by it, and I will put my
Citation needed.
reputation on that. Yeah. Okay. I'll get you the study, but it turns out they're human beings, and what that means is I try not to be for killing them unless there's any real necessity, and I try to recognize too that in general they're not these evil caricatures that just hate us for all these. And yes, there are serious religious issues over there. There's serious
Mm,
political issues, but the amount of shit that we have done to that country, including overthrowing their legit government to install ours. We did that, period. End of. How would we feel if that was done? But you have this thing with Nazis that you keep saying that I like about making me be on the side of Nazis, which
yeah,
is a great.
don't make me defend Nazis. Stop
Please
that.
don't make, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What Ansgar always does with this is if somebody goes up and punches a Nazi,
Mm.
and the Nazi wasn't doing anything, was just sitting there being peaceful, and somebody goes up and starts beating on the Nazi, it's like what anybody of character has to do is say, no, stop beating the Nazi.
And I
And
don't want
all
to
of a
say
sudden you're
that.
on. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
And I don't want to have to say that.
I don't want to have to be on that side. So
No.
stop doing it because there's right and there's wrong regardless of. And Iran has done some really bad shit. They've also done some really not so bad shit, and we've done a lot of terrible things to them. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with Cuba, by the way. If we just listen to the rhetoric, okay, Cuba's horrible. Now we fucked Cuba over a lot too. So they've got reasons to be pissed at us. Anyways, were you gonna suggest something?
Yeah,
Or
apparently there's a hashtag Nick kicks Hornets now and a hashtag Ansgar hugs Hornets. So there we
Oh,
go.
oh well, yeah, well, there you go. At least well, I was gonna say at least the other hashtag is gone, but I'm not gonna say it because as soon as I say it, the hashtag comes back. So I'd like to briefly get into the with the discussion I had with Dr. Griffith because I thought she reframed this for me in a way that I really like and highlighted why I enjoy having her on this show. So I'm going to do my best to represent her position, and we talked about this briefly. This is her position was, I thought, very, very interesting. Now, my position is ostensibly this is a massive loss for the U.S. because we have invested a tremendous amount in Iraq and we are about to lose most of it. Her position was, yay! Which, and she was able to actually really defend the kicks puppies. Oh, God. Um, uh, yeah, I guess that video got out. Anyways, um, no, her position was ostensibly, if I understand it correctly, I think I do. So we spoke for about a half hour, and she pointed out a couple of things. First of all that is what is called in business, and maybe we could elect like a real estate mogul as president so that they understand how real estate works. But there's a concept in real estate called sunk costs. That means that's the money that you've already put into something that you're not going to get back no matter what happens. Now, there's what's called the sunk cost fallacy. What this is where you, in calculating what you're willing to pay in the future for something, you calculate the money that's already been spent as if that actually weighs somewhere, and it doesn't. That's an emotional argument. It is not one based on reality. The only question economically is, okay, given where we are now, let's sort of start at the 0 point right now today in the decision making. The question is, okay, how much do we have to spend? Probably. What are we looking at to spend to achieve our goals? What has already been spent has already been spent. It's a sunk cost. It doesn't matter. We're not getting that back no matter what happens. So the question is, standing where we are today, how much more are we willing to spend? And the reality is, I don't know what we're going to get out of Iraq. I don't know what we can get
Hmm.
out of Iraq. It's nice to sort of keep what we've got there, but the reality is, if Iraq ends up getting into another war, especially with Iran, anything like that, we could get dragged into it. Whatever happens in Iraq, it ends up sort of weighing around our necks. And what she pointed out was what we can just do is walk away. This is our opportunity to say, we won. Which is what I mean. This is Trump's main maneuver, which is to take a pull victory out of I got my ass handed to me. I'm going to walk away and say I won. It's like we gave them the freedom that we said we were there to do. They are self-governing now. Saddam Hussein, the terrible tyrant, is gone. We've accomplished everything we said we were out there to accomplish. Wipe our hands of it, walk away, and say, aren't we this great, awesome nation because we did exactly what we intended to do. Now, of course, that wasn't at all our intentions. We lied about
Hmm.
all that shit. But we can still turn this into a huge PR thing where we say, we told them we wanted them to have freedom. If that means that they have the right to kick us out, that's what it means. So she said we should get out of there. Thank our lucky stars that we're getting out of there with actually this ability to boost our own reputation, with this ability to say, see, we really are who we say we are. Probably isn't true, but we can frame it that way and get the fuck out of Dodge there. And yeah, we spent a lot of money. Guess what? You know how much money we spend? I mean, again, our military budget. I mean, what really is to be gained by staying. So she actually thinks that this is an opportunity. If it can be used that way, she thinks that we should probably get out. Again, I believe I'm accurately. If I'm getting any of this wrong, obviously she failed to communicate it to me accurately. But oh, come on, that was funny. it was very enlightening because she doesn't see this as so much of the disaster that I do. We have other military bases there. We probably should be removing most of those. Quite frankly, we've been meddling in the Middle East for a very long time. It hasn't yielded the dividends that it always has. And she brought up one other point, which is all our bases there require serious fucking protection.
Hmm.
They are targets. And especially now, they're bigger targets. The fewer targets we have, the easier our lives become. So not only there's a whole bunch of reasons she said we should get out of there. At a minimum, if this is true about Congress trying to force Trump to abide by this, if he doesn't, we are in big trouble internationally because it is actually a violation of international law if we don't go. We're already skirting international law with the first killing, depending on how well we justify it, which right now that seems to be heading south. And then the other problem is Hezbollah has now called on Iraqis, including and especially their military, to fight an insurgency against the U.S. if we fail to leave. Now, Hezbollah doesn't carry a lot of weight with us. I don't know how much weight they carry with them, except that they're all of roughly the same religion, and I think a lot of them don't like us in the first place. So that's a pretty significant call there. So if we don't leave, I think we are facing massive combat operations against the Iraqi civilian and the Iraqi military itself if we don't go. So I
I
I think
I think
yeah.
there's a few things that remain a problem even when we just straight up pull out. Now I'd love to be done in the entire region, but someone bring up first of all the Kurds. We would basically be signing the death certificate of the Kurds.
Why is that?
Um, well, without our protection, the Kurds may very well could very well easily be slaughtered.
So just to give some context for the people who don't know. So the Kurds
Mm.
are they're
Oh,
a group. They're
yes, they
they're an
are.
ethnic group.
Yeah, they're an
Yes.
ethnic group, and they are basically surrounded on all sides by people that hate them. And they are, for all practical purposes, their religious system is what you would call moderate compared to most of the others in the region, and we have a
Mhm.
long history of supporting them and basically keeping for selling them weapons, giving them military support, even aid in airstrikes against their enemies. And currently there are borders drawn that protect the Kurds. Without
Okay.
a U.S. military intervention, their future does not look so peachy. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is what whether we pull out or not, what this does with, I mean, you, we were already, we already screwed up the Iran, you know, nuclear deal, as we discussed, but now it is so over. It is fractured. The idea that they won't develop a nuclear weapon at this point, that is just, we can forget that. We can absolutely forget that. So so it occurs to me that even first of all, pulling out of the region, I mean, there are some significant advantages to that. I think you and I both hate the military industrial complex and would like to see us pull out, but there are some allies there that do get screwed over by doing that. The other thing is with this pullout, there are allies who also had financial and political interest in the region who are also being kicked out, and they have us to blame for that. This puts this puts some significant strain on some political elite some political allies that we have. Um, yeah.
It really is amazing that now the Kurds have been very supportive of us. So the Kurds were critical in the original invasion. They helped. They didn't ask for a lot. They really just sort of wanted to keep their territory to themselves, which is what they got. And the U.S. has been protecting them. And they have been crucial allies. Now, we have thrown them
Mm,
under the bus with Turkey. Turkey has been going after them. Turkey does not like them, and we've been allowing Turkey to do that. And Trump has now essentially said, can do whatever you want. We have, I'm sorry to say this, and I'm just going to be blunt about this. We have absolutely betrayed them. They were
Mhm.
allies, they were strong allies, and they actually really liked us. And we betrayed the fuck out of them in the last 2 months when it comes to Turkey. They are now getting wiped out, and they blame us, and they are correct for doing so. Now, um, that means I mean, the problem with the Middle East is we appear to be making enemies faster than we can kill them.
We are
And
Batman in the Middle East.
we are Batman.
Yeah, Batman creates every single one of his own villains.
Oh yes, yes. No, no, that's a fair. That's a fair. I don't. I think I would have other objections to the analogy, but I think that's a good one. So we have. It is true. I mean, well, we created. That's a really good point because we essentially. Osama bin Laden used to be an ally.
Mhm.
We gave him most of the weapons that he used against us was
And the
given to him by the
training.
U.S. and the training. That's right. And
Yeah.
then also Iraq, the chemical weapons that Saddam Hussein had. Nobody asked where he got those from. I know where he got those from. He did have chemical weapons, and he was given those by an ally.
Yeah, wonder who.
I wonder who that could be. So, we are very flighty there, and that makes it very difficult for anyone to trust us and want to work with us. So at this point, the Kurds probably all want us dead. At this point now, Iran and Iraq, which is, again, we've discussed this, but going back, that's essentially Persia and Arabia, who have wanted to kill each other for 3,000 years, have now agreed on something. That's new, and that's on the fact that they hate us. So we're doing a bang up job over there. And frankly, I will admit it's always difficult, but it's hard to fuck it up this badly. Obama did some serious fuck ups, by the way. He did.
Mhm.
Obama. There's the argument that Obama created. What's it? That Jesus. What was the super the successor to Al Qaeda?
Oh, yeah, ISIS.
ISIS. Obama created ISIS. Yeah, he actually kind of did. He didn't mean to, um, but he pulled a
Every
bluff,
single
and he
time.
it was
Yeah, but the problem is
bluffed.
we keep creating power vacuums. And every time we do that, we create a worse and bigger, nastier enemy, to be quite honest.
And then we bail. I mean, where's and here's the other thing. If you Saddam Hussein was bad. First of all, the argument that we had to remove him because he was a dictator was the stupidest and worst argument. And I always got truly offended by that because that was during the genocide in Darfur. There was genocide occurring in Darfur. Ooh, Saddam Hussein killed 10,000 of his own people. That's why we have to go in and get him. That was the argument made by the right. And I lost a lot of respect for the right when they made that argument because, yeah, he had killed 10,000 people like 10 years prior. And while that's a lot of people and that's a horrible thing, and maybe we should do something about it. At that exact moment, 10,000 people were dying every 2 months in Darfur. They were dying right then and there. And we said, no, we're going to go kill Saddam Hussein because, hey, he killed 10,000 people 10 years ago. He wasn't killing anyone then. And yeah, he was a bad guy, but he was the most moderate. Women could work
Yeah.
they could actually go out in public without having to wear burqas. So, if anyone asked who Osama bin Laden was going to come after he finished us, it was Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein could have been an ally. And while that sounds detestable and I don't like it, he was the best person you could work with over there.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of killing people for shit that happened 10 years ago, our president has promised that right now there are military weapons targeting, let's see, 55
Jesus.
cultural sites in
55 or 52?
50. Let me see how many it was. I want to.
And that number is important, and I think
It
people will recognize the
is.
number.
It is. Um, I want to find the exact number because it is very important.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, 52 Iranian sites representing 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago. When he says many years ago, how many years was this?
4-0.
40 years ago. So he's threatening vengeance for something that happened 40 years ago by, just so you know, targeting what he calls cultural sites that will be hit very fast and very hard. Um, he is threatening a war crime.
Yes, that's not the yeah. Targeting cultural sites is a war crime. That
Yeah.
is not disputed by any country that I'm aware of. That's part of the UN. It is a war crime, and he is threatening to do it. Which, by the way, that's not the first. I mean, the first time I really remember him threatening war crimes was when he said we should go around killing the families of terrorists.
God,
He
yes.
said that, and people haven't been taking him seriously. But he said it, he meant it, and once sort of somebody explained to him that you can't kill a man's wife, brother, children for what that man does, he still was like, well, I think we can in this case. No, fucking holy shit. I'm sorry. This is triggering for me because I mean this is terrible shit, and this is what happens when you act like a terrorist. So he
Well,
is threatening
this is the kind of shit
to
that we
attack.
condemn ISIS for. Is one of the things they do when they take over an area is they destroy their cultural relics.
Yep. And even if, by the way, it's a culture that I don't listen. I'm not for. Okay, and you and I have discussed this. This is a somewhat unpopular position. I'm not necessarily for destroying all Nazi symbols. Why?
No.
Because it's part of human history and we can't forget it. Forgetting it is dangerous, and burying it is an attempt to forget it. It's us. I'm sorry, it's me too. By the way, I may be an American, but if we'll discuss that some other time. But what was it? Uh, the Milgram experiment showed anything, that's us. It's human beings that did that, not some monster that we have to pretend is hidden in the closet and we can close the door and it goes away. That's us. We can't get rid of that. But there's also, I'm not a huge fan of most religious stuff, but I like some religious relics. They look pretty, and I understand that there's significance to them. You can't just obliterate them. So when three when what was it? The Taliban was destroying 3,000-year-old religious relics. As somebody who's against organized religion, I was devastated by that
Yeah.
because how many things that are 3,000-year-old
I
still
shed a
exist?
tear when the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
The
No, that
artwork
I
alone that was destroyed. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And there are people who sit there and say, "Oh, atheists love." No, maybe some do. In fact, I do know some anti-atheists who are like, "No, burn it all." No,
Oh,
but
oh,
anyway, so yeah, so our president is now talking about a war crime. He probably is going to want to stay, and he's going to sit there and say they can't kick us out and they should appreciate us. But by the way, here's the other thing. So the reason we went into Iraq for a lot of reasons. It wasn't weapons of mass destruction. I will tell you this: something most people don't know, and I'm going to defend this statement. There are people who are going to think I'm crazy. There were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They were there when we invaded. Some people like to say, Republicans like to say, I've met people who watch Fox News, they say, oh, they moved them and they hid them and so on and so forth. There's all this conspiracy stuff that if you watch Fox News, they suggest but never actually demonstrate. There were weapons of mass destruction, including sarin gas. No, I don't think sarin, but there was the high explosives. There's a whole bunch of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq when we invaded. Did you know that, Ansgar?
no.
Most people don't know that, and
No.
most people sit there and think it's a conspiracy. There were. We weren't looking for weapons of mass destruction. We were looking for undeclared weapons of mass destruction. The UN told Iraq that they had to declare all their weapons of mass destruction. They did in a May, I want to say 1992 declaration where they said, these are all our weapons of mass destruction. They built bunkers. They put those weapons in the bunkers, and the bunkers were sealed by the UN. There were 4 sites, Al-Qaqa, Mutatha, two others I can't remember. I wrote an article on it. I've got it all
Mhm.
down. There were 4 sites that had weapons of mass destruction, but they were declared. They had been inventoried by the UN. They were on Iraqi soil, but the Iraqi government was not allowed to access them. Now, it was just a guy that I don't even think he was armed. No, I think he was, but there was basically just a guy and a plastic seal between the world and those weapons, but they were there. The question was, did he have undeclared weapons of mass destruction? But that is the kind of nuance that often doesn't translate well in the news. Those sites existed. Right before the US invaded, The UN handed a declaration list to the United States and said, these are all the sites. We will not stay there during a time of war, so you will have to secure them. And the UN, there were guards there who described troops coming, and we did this quote lightning war. That was a great use of language,
Mhm.
where we just rolled through Iraq, but we actually had troops staying at these sites, and especially Mutatha, where we stayed for a night, and there was a UN guard there who said, "Do you know what I have in this bunker?" And they're like, "Yeah, we know, but we're not staying. Nobody's staying." So he left, they left, and that's where most of the high explosive, I forget what it's called, but there's a very lethal high explosive that the insurgency got from raiding these sites. They also got there's missing chemical weapons. We don't know where it is. Most of it's probably degraded by now. But if we were interested in weapons of mass destruction, why didn't we secure the weapons that were actually there that had been declared that we knew about? We ignored all that and said, oh, there's weapons that he's hiding, which of course wasn't true, but there were weapons that we knew and we ignored. We were there because we thought we could be heroes. We thought we could rebuild the country. We thought we could do all these, and then we just dropped the ball on it. We're like, okay, they're free, without understanding that
Mission
they already,
accomplished.
yeah, mission accomplished. They already considered themselves free. And what happened when we showed in? The infrastructure was gone. They lost power. People died. I think it was, last count that I recall was one estimate as high as 400,000 civilians dead from what we did there. Now, maybe they should thank us for that. Maybe. I wouldn't if I were them. I'd say, no, things were better under Saddam Hussein, who was an evil dictator, but people lived for the most part, except for the 10,000 Kurds that he killed. But again, that was 10 years ago, and we killed a lot more civilians a lot faster.
Well, the thing
So,
is, every single time that we stick our finger into the region, so to speak, and stir, we unleash a new wave of sectarian violence every single time. Um, so yeah, if you were living a relatively, I mean, maybe you hated Saddam Hussein, right? But we hate our president now. If a foreign country came and killed him and then became an occupying force and unleashed a wave of rebellion and violence and bloodshed, I would hate the occupiers way more than I dislike our president now. And that's sort of the reality we have to see. Just because somebody hates their leader doesn't mean they're going to see you as a superhero if you kill him.
yes. And also there's national pride too. And I'll
Mm,
actually get into that in it because that's a mistake we always make with the Russians. We think that they hate living under a dictator, which they do, and that they're going to, you know, be thrilled as soon as we give them freedom. And no, it turns out that they still don't, even if they have to thank us for it, they don't want it. So I just actually dropped an essay I had done. This is the essay I was talking about, but and hey, it's got links, it's got evidence, it's got receipts. But so we failed to secure WMD sites that did exist. There were WMDs in Iraq, but they were declared sites. We failed to secure them, and they did include, in fact, sarin gas, other banned weapons, and 377 tons of high explosive HMX, which went missing and was the explosives that made up most of the WMDs that we ended up having to fight in Iraq. We had control of those. Actually, the UN did, and we were. So how can someone say we were there for we weren't there for any of the reasons we said. We were there because we wanted extra veto power in OPEC, which Iraq would grant us. And we were there for the reasons Dick Cheney said, which was that we would be able to tap their oil, that American oil companies would be able to make all this money off of it. They'd get the proceeds, but we'd get like the extra benefit. We'd get cheap oil, and it would be so much that they'd pay us back for the invasion.
we're gonna
Yeah,
invade,
I
and they're
know.
gonna pay us to invade.
Oh, people bought this shit. I mean, I remember having to argue with people going like, that's not how it works. Oh, no, 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 they're going to pay us back for it. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. And by the way, if we are truly there as liberators,
Mhm.
then we pay the cost. If being the good guy were easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Being the good guy isn't easy. Being the good guy means you go in, you do the right thing, and you go out. You don't sit there and say, I just freed your ass, now pay me.
Right.
But Misha Griffith made out a very good point. This is where we can sit there and say, hey, we did what we said we were trying to do. Everybody knows it's not why we were there.
Yeah.
But now we can sit there and actually follow the values we say we hold, follow the reasoning we gave. They're
Um,
free now.
Here's
We
an
gave them their
interesting
freedom.
little update, real quick.
Yeah.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has
Yes.
delivered a statement that basically says, "Ignore Trump's tweet. We are not targeting cultural sites, and we will not do that."
The Secretary of State said that?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, that's true, regardless of whether he says it or not.
Right.
But the fact that he's willing to say that suggests to me that Trump's own cabinet is starting to turn on him significantly. I don't think they've ever liked him, but if he's willing to tweet out now, of course, Trump's going to attack him for that. Trump's going to be pissed,
This
but
wasn't in a
good.
tweet. He said that any
Oh,
target the U.S. military may strike in Iran in the event Iran retaliates against America for killing its most powerful general would be legal under the laws of armed conflict. Pompeo was asked about President Donald Trump's assertion Saturday on Twitter that the United States has 52 Iranian targets in its sights, some at very high levels of importance to Iran and the Iranian culture. And yeah, he said that they would follow all the protocols ratified in the recent years and yada yada yada. But yes, so he has come out and said that no, we're not actually going to do that.
well, thank God somebody is sane in that administration. I do think this, and it smacks of, and I wanted to say this earlier, and when Trump said, "Oh well, Canada burned down the White House." First of all, that was what, like 150 years ago, and second of all, it wasn't Canada. But at any rate, even if it was Canada, he's holding that against Trudeau and he says we're targeting 52 sites because of 52 hostages. That's why the number was important. Iran took 52 hostages 40 years ago. Trump was 13 when it happened.
Yeah.
Um, and but because of that, we're going to target for. Oh my God, does this
And
guy
that
hold a
tweet
grudge?
played really well to his base. So I have to ask, what, considering how the base has rallied for both Iran around Iran and their promise of retaliation, and how Trump's base has rallied around this sort of strongman persona of no, we're just going to kill anyone in our way. um what is the likelihood that Trump actually uses this opportunity to back out? What is the likelihood that he actually pulls our troops out? And what's the likelihood we go to some kind of a military conflict, in your opinion?
I haven't a clue. His instincts tend to go both ways on this one. Somebody had pointed out he's a coward and that he likes to quit from shit. I mean, he's a quitter. He is just a fucking quitter. And that's good. I'm glad. When shit gets tough, he is filled with bluster. He loves the bluster, but he has no interest in sticking around in anything really long term. And okay, yeah, you see his name on the side of buildings. Do you know how many of those are just licensed? He sells his license a lot. He licenses his name to places, but in terms of businesses that he sticks in with for any length of time, he usually over leverages them, bankrupts them, tries to get the money out of it, and bails. He's not for extended engagements. He's for anything that keeps his image up. But if he can credibly walk away, which Congress may have just given it to him, I mean, if they force him to, I don't know. He's either going to, I mean, this is obvious, and I hate to just sort of state the obvious and make it seem like I'm saying something that's profound. He's either going to go with his instinct of bluster and just nobody tells me what to do, and I got the biggest dick in the world, and try to double down, or he's going to just find a way to just like get the fuck out and say, you know what, this is their problem. They want to fucking they're dead without us. You know what, they don't appreciate us. They don't realize how much great stuff we've done for them. If they want to deal with their own problems and get wiped out, that's fine. They'll come crawling back to us and we'll remember what they've done here today and then bail. It's
um
going to be one of those two. What do you think?
I think we might end up in a proxy war. I think that we have corporate interests, particularly in the oil in the region, and I think that sort of a pacified Iraq is one of the things that we see as key to that. Continuing those assets. So I think that there's going to be some very wealthy people who have interest in that. I also think that Trump's ultimate goal is reelection, and I think he's sort of shown his hand with the speech to the evangelicals about bringing prayer back in school at the same time that he's done this. So I think he's going
Do
to
you
try and not. I think he's going to try and skirt the line as much as possible. I don't think he
do
wants
you
to.
think he really wants to get reelected? I mean, do you think
Yes.
if his ego, or let me rephrase that, if the appearance were pulled out of it, if it didn't matter, or if he was going to look good either way, and there wasn't a difference in the optics, do you think he'd really want to be reelected, or he'd bail?
No, I think he wants to be reelected. I do. I think he wants to. I don't think he wants. If he doesn't get reelected, then all of his bluster about things like the impeachment is is justified. I mean, sorry, all of his bluster gets sort of excuse me, the other way around. If he gets reelected, his bluster is justified. If he doesn't make reelection, or if he leaves office, then it's almost like admitting defeat. I don't think he wants to do that. I think he wants to. I think he's found a way to shore up his base. I think he's found a
Hmm.
way to plug the the you could call it the hemorrhaging of support. And I think he's going to try and skirt the line. I don't think he necessarily wants a war, but I think he's going to save that for if he needs it. But I think he will play with skirmishes in the region, if that makes sense.
I It does. So let's do this. I think we're going to need to start thinking about putting a pin in this. So let's cover again sort of what we've got coming up, because actually we already have a few things scheduled this week that I think are going to address this and address some other rather significant international news that nobody's been covering, and then sort of restate sort of what has happened and where we are, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
So this week we've got we do have a Patreon hangout. So if you're not a patron and want to become one, we rely very heavily on our patrons, and we talk to them. We have a Discord. Anyone is welcome on our Discord. We like to talk about show ideas, breaking news. A lot of people drop in information so we can stay on top of it, which we appreciate. So the link is in the description. If you want to become a patron, we are having a patron hangout on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All patrons are welcome. We just shoot the shit and also talk about ways to improve the show. You get to actually meet Ansgar's hat.
It's
The hat
true.
plays a
True. The hat gets to speak for itself during the Patreon hangouts.
yep. And we also have on SciGart, we're going to be talking about the evangelical support of Trump and whether or not it's justified, and how can evangelicals actually justify, given their
Yeah.
purported beliefs, a
That's
support of Donald
Wednesday
Trump.
at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And then we're going to be discussing NASA rocketry and the space program with Red's rhetoric.
Can't
That
wait.
will
I'm
be
so psyched for
okay.
that one.
I think that's going to be a good one. I like Red's a lot, so I'm looking forward to having him on. And yeah, so we got a full calendar, and of course we will be on the really remote off chance there's any more breaking news. We will cover it.
Totally
So
remote. Nothing
yeah,
going on right
I've
now.
got it. Yeah, no, it's not a biggie. So if you want to get notifications of that, like and subscribe. We also are now actually we can take memberships now on that feature may be off at the present moment. I don't remember if it's been activated yet, but we can take memberships on the YouTube as well. If you want to become a member, we sincerely appreciate that. But at any rate, to get back to where we stand right now, the Iraqi parliament has voted essentially to expel. They haven't used this language, but this is essentially what they voted to do: is to expel all U.S. interests from Iraq. Iraq, obviously, we did not. Now there were Iraqi casualties from the initial bombing, but they are doing it in essence as a show of solidarity with Iran, which is pretty stunning. They are not in solidarity with Iran, but they don't want a war with Iran, and they want to assert their own independence, and they are doing that by kicking us out. That means we will lose all the military bases. In fact, those military bases will probably become Iranian military bases, and they're very high-end military bases because, gee, we're really good at thinking forward. Iran has promised retaliation against U.S. interests as a result of the killing of a high-level Iranian general, ostensibly top tier, ostensibly second really only to Ayatollah Khomeini. What interests they will attack is as yet unknown, but Ansgar pointed this out, and I think he's probably right, which is that I don't think they have much of a choice in the matter, but to do something. Their people are upset. Iraqi people are upset, and we have managed to unite most of the Arab and Persian world against us, which is joy, joy, joy.
It's a unique feat.
It is. It is. Trump. Well, you know what? Trump was right. He didn't even need Kushner to do it. He has managed to unite the Middle East. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for joining us. If there's any significant change, oh yes, and ostensibly we had coming in, and I don't know what's going to happen with this. It looks like Congress may try to force Trump to take that as binding, that legislation that has passed in Iraq
Ooh.
right now. That
And
legislation
29 minutes ago, Iran actually set out a statement that they are officially pulling out of the nuclear deal. In other words, they are publicly delivering a statement that we are now pursuing the creation of nuclear weapons. That
oh joy.
is
Okay,
big.
so let me get to that. Let me get to that one in a sec.
Mhm.
So the Parliament has passed their Parliament has passed the law saying that the U.S. essentially saying that the U.S. is going to be expelled. Now they put it much kinder. What they said was plans should be made for how the U.S. is going to withdraw. The president has to sign it. Until their president signs it, it's not law. However, not only has the president said he will sign it, not only is he expected to sign it, but he has actually already got a timetable, and he has said we will have all U.S. troops gone by a certain period of time. Hezbollah, other organizations have said if the U.S. does not withdraw, they will attack us. And if we don't withdraw, and if the president signs it, essentially we would become an occupying force in a country that, thanks to us, is a free, democratically elected country. So now this new one. Here's the other thing about the Iran nuclear deal. Most people have not fully appreciated, which is that deal wasn't just with us. It was with, I want to say, 28 other countries. I may just be pulling that number out of my ass, but it was with a number of countries, and the other countries have agreed to continue to abide by it. Now, there are complications with that, but for the most part, they could, up until this point, keep a pin in Iran without us. It wasn't easy, but they were doing it, and Iran was negotiating in good faith with those countries to keep that deal in place. If they're pulling out of the deal, that means unilaterally. That means completely with all the countries. Now, we have already violated our end of the deal. We violated it. We broke the deal we made with Iran, period. We tried to sort of make it look like it was okay because we just said, oh, well, we're required to certify that they're doing their end, and they're not doing their end. Yeah, the evidence that we presented that they're not doing their end, that evidence was of stuff that they'd done before the deal was signed. Before the deal was signed. Once it was signed, the CIA, FBI, everybody, FBI isn't involved in that. Actually, the FBI is kind of involved in that certification. But all our intelligence forces said that they have kept their end of the deal. We certified that they haven't, and have used that as an excuse to bail, which is a violation of the treaty. Why anyone's going to make a treaty with us if we break them, I don't know. But apparently that hasn't crossed anyone's mind. Iran has actually kept with the deal with the other countries, and I guess, Ansgar, what you're saying now is they're going to bail on that.
Yep. Yep, but they had continued. By the way, we've got a significant number of trolls in the chat right now. So if the moderators could please take care of that. I'm also, let's see if I can figure out a way to put on the slow mode in chat. Sorry about that, people. Yeah, live chat. Let's see. Yes, we now have a slow mode.
Oh wow, yeah, we do have a number of. Wow, things are going
Yes,
a
we
little crazy in
do.
there.
Yes.
Wow.
So, yes, if we could please get the moderators to handle that, that would be fantastic. Anyone who's just spamming the same stuff, go ahead and just hide them on this channel, because they obviously are not here to do anything but troll.
Yeah, and Mr. P is getting back his wrench, and I think there's one or two other people I think who can
Yeah.
uh who I think we will wrench just to and we appreciate it. Thank you all very much
Thank
for
you.
helping out. I'm not, that's fine. People want to people want to troll. They want to troll. We'll get that taken care of. So, all right, but I think that just about covers this. This has been very interesting. Yeah, the wife aggro. There is definitely yeah, but it is what it is, and we appreciate all of you for joining us. We appreciate all of you for taking some time to come here, and I hope that we have done it justice. If there is any new significant breaking news, we will be live. If you want to catch it, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notifications. And until then, thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. See you guys later, and until next time.